Good morning, kindergarten, and welcome to today's Read Aloud. I think it's important to get to know each other, to know who we are and where we come from. And that's why today I chose a book that's very special to me. I chose a book that shows my culture and where I'm from. This book is called Berry Magic. Here's the cover, the spine, and the back. The author is Terry Sloat, the person who writes the words, and Betty Huffman. And the illustrator, the person who does the beautiful pictures, is Terry Sloat as well. Now where I'm from, the traditional clothing looks just like this. She's wearing a kusbuk jacket and muklaks boots. Long ago, before your grandmother's memory, before the salmon berries and raspberries, before the cranberries and blueberries, there were only little black crowberries on the tundra. They grew like dots on the tops of the hills. Tundra is the land that is in Alaska. Not very many trees or bushes grow. Most things don't grow on tundra, but if you look closely, you can see what does. Every fall, the old woman grumbled about the crowberries. These berries are so dry. These berries have no taste. These berries are not worth picking. But they picked them anyway, for there had to be a gudok, Eskimo ice cream, at the fall feast, and it had to be filled with berries. Anana watched the old women. She liked their brightly trimmed gusbucks, decorated the tundra. And while she watched them, a plan grew in her mind. So here's Anana, she's the character. You call me Mrs. Turner, but if you were to call me by my Eskimo name, you would call me Duchak. As soon as Anana was home, she took down the sewing bag her grandmother had given her. Inside, she found everything she needed to make 4 little dolls dressed in fur parkas. She even found 4 tiny scraps of cloth-colored red, blue, orange, and rose. She made the first doll quickly, stuffing it with dry grass. After stitching pieces of squirrel skin together for its parka, she tied the piece of red cloth around its head for a bladuk. This right here is the bladuk, and many people in my culture wear that. She made the second doll more slowly, filling it with soft moss. She dressed it in muskrat fur, trimming it with blue beads. The dangles of blue beads matched the doll's little blue bladuk. Anana made the third doll carefully, filling it with reindeer hair. She dressed it in a parka of fine reindeer skin. She placed the doll in the window, letting the setting sun paint an orange glow on its cheeks that matched the bladuk tied around its head. So here's the third doll she made with the third bladuk. Anana made the last doll with much joy. She lovingly filled it with goose down, covered its plump body with warm foxskin, and stitched together a tiny pair of sealskin mucklucks for its feet. Finally, she strung a necklace of rosy beads around its neck to match the bladoek. She looked at her dolls and slowly drew in her breath. "Ah-ling," she murmured, for she was pleased. Then Anana wrapped the dolls in her fancy parka, placing them inside her reindeer skin bag, along with her dance fans. When the moon began to rise, she carried the bag up a nearby hill. With every step, her load became heavier. At last, Anana reached the crowberries at the top of the hill. She turned in a circle and looked out all around her at the vast moonlit tundra. When it was time, she untied her bag and slipped the parka over her head. Then Anana began to dance. Snuggling the ruff around her face, she sang, "Atsaiya, Atsaiya, Atsakina, berry, berry, be a berry." Anana peeked down at her bag. Out wiggled a little girl, dressed in squirrel skins and wearing a bright red bladoek. The girl went tumbling down the hill past the crowberries, leaving dots of tasty red cranberries shining in the moonlight. Anana sang again. "Atsaiya, Atsaiya, Atsukina, Atsakina, berry, berry, be a berry." Out of the bag slipped another little girl with blue beads dangling from her muskrat parka, and she wore a blue bladoek. While Anana danced, the girl leapt over the crowberries and past the cranberries. She rolled head over heels through the bushes below, leaving clusters of juicy blueberries wherever she went. Anana danced faster, singing louder. "Atsaiya, Atsaiya, Atsakina." A little girl dressed in reindeer skins and wearing an orange bladoek popped from the bag. She jumped over the crowberries, sprang over the cranberries, and bounced over the blueberries. She hopped across the boggy grass from hummock to hummock, leaving a trail of tangy salmon berries on long stems. You can see the salmon berries at the bottom. The orange ones, they taste so good. Knowing there was still one doll left in the bag, Anana shouted with excitement. "Atsaiya!" But she was too loud, and the last little girl was shy. Anana lowered her voice a bit and called, "Atsaiya!" But the last little girl was too shy, so Anana whispered in her kindest voice, "Atsakina." The plump little girl blushed and smiled at Anana as she peeked out from the bag. With her rosy beads flying, she gave a great leap. Beyond the crowberries and the cranberries, beyond the blueberries and salmon berries, and into the grass at the bottom of the hill. While Anana finished her dance, sweet, rosy raspberries peeked out from the shadows. Anana's heart was so overflowing with joy as she hurried home. While the moon was still shining, berries spread from hill to hill. By morning, the tundra was covered with red, blue, orange, and rosy berries. Anana woke early and filled her baskets with berries for the fall feast. That night, the old women couldn't get enough of the berry-filled agudak. While Nana danced, she heard them saying, "Those berries are so juicy! Those berries are so tasty! Ah, Ling, these berries are like magic!" Even the grumpiest woman was smiling. Anana smiled too. And from that day until now, Anana's berries have filled the agudak at every fall fest. And just like home, we also make agudak, the Eskimo ice cream that we eat. And this book shows one version of a recipe how to make it. Agudak is my favorite dessert. I love it so much. Thank you, kindergarten, for listening to my culture.